Yo, real quick before I get into this one, this is an audio story, so throw it on while you're driving, at the gym, doing literally anything. I don't care. But if you've got 2 seconds, smash that subscribe button and drop a like right now before we start. Seriously, it takes you like 1 second and it helps this channel out more than you'd think. Okay, let's get into it, because this one's actually unhinged. So, I got a text from my old coworker Marcus like 2 weeks ago that just said, "Did you hear what happened to Dale?" No context, nothing. And I swear my heart rate went up because when it comes to my old boss Dale, "Did you hear what happened?" could genuinely mean anything from he got audited to he tried to expense a jet ski. Turns out it was neither. It was way better. And honestly, the whole thing only happened because of what I did to him about a year before that. So let me back up, because you need the full picture to appreciate how beautifully this whole thing came together. Quick intro. I'm Jake, I'm 29, and for about 4 years, I worked at this mid-sized logistics company doing account management, which is a fancy way of saying I answered emails and yelled at truck drivers politely. Not a bad job, actually. Decent pay, decent people, chill enough hours. The one catastrophic flaw in the whole operation was the owner, Dale Prescott. 58 years old, drives a Lexus that's older than some of my coworkers, and is, no exaggeration, the cheapest human being I have ever encountered in my entire life. And I don't mean cheap like doesn't buy name brand ketchup. I mean cheap on a spiritual, cellular level. This is a man who once fought a vending machine for 45 minutes because it ate his 75 cents. I want to paint you a picture of Dale before we get into the actual chaos, because context matters here. Dale kept a drawer in his office, an actual drawer, like a filing cabinet drawer, labeled pens, office use only, do not remove. And he would physically watch you sign something and then hold his hand out for the pen back like you were borrowing his kidney. He reused teabags multiple times. I watched him dunk the same Lipton bag into 3 separate cups of hot water over the course of one Tuesday. And when someone asked him about it, dead serious, he said, "It's still got flavor in it," like that was a legally binding defense. The break room fridge had snacks in it that predated most of the company's current employees. There was a box of granola bars that had a Best By date from before I even started working there. And every time somebody threw an expired one out, Dale would materialize out of nowhere, like he had a sixth sense for wasted food, and go, "Those are still perfectly good. Best By dates are just a suggestion from Big Cardboard." Which, I don't even know what that means, and neither did he, but he said it with such confidence that nobody argued. And that's just the appetizer, man. I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. The thermostat in that office was basically a religious conflict. Dale had it locked at 68 degrees in the summer and 68 degrees in the winter. Same number. Didn't matter what season it was. Didn't matter that half the office was wearing parkas indoors in July, because he insisted 68 is scientifically optimal for productivity. Which, Dale, my guy, you did not consult a single scientist. You just like it that way because the electric bill's smaller. We had a whole underground economy of space heaters. People would sneak in and hide in their cubbies like contraband, because if Dale caught one plugged in, he'd unplug it himself and leave a sticky note that just said, "Not approved," like he was some kind of thermostat cop. Printer ink was its own whole saga. Dale had this theory that the printer was, quote, using too much ink on unnecessary things. So he set the default print quality to draft for the entire office, permanently. Which meant every single document that came out of that printer looked like it had been faxed from 1987 and then photocopied by somebody with a head cold. Clients would get proposals from us that looked like ransom notes. We tried to explain this to Dale multiple times, and he'd just go, "It says right there what it says. That's not our problem." Referring to text so faint, you basically had to hold it up to a window to read it. Birthdays were their own special punishment. Company policy, and I use the word policy generously, was that Dale would buy one communal cake per month to cover every birthday that fell in that 30-day stretch, no matter how many people that was. One time, we had 4 birthdays in the same month, and Dale bought a single sheet cake from the absolute cheapest grocery store in a 30-mile radius, the kind of cake that tastes vaguely like the memory of frosting. And he had it cut into exactly the right number of slices for everybody in the office. No extras, no seconds. And if you tried to grab a second sliver, he would look at you like you just asked to borrow his car. And don't even get me started on the bathroom. For about 3 months, Dale switched us over to this industrial hand soap that smelled like a swimming pool had a bad day, because it was, and he told us this proudly, 11 cents cheaper per gallon than what we'd had before. People started bringing their own little travel bottles of actual soap from home and hiding them behind the paper towel dispenser like we were running some kind of underground resistance movement against Dale's bathroom economics. Okay, one more Dale story before we get to the expenses stuff, because I need you to fully understand the caliber of human we're dealing with here. Every year, the company sends a couple people out to this regional logistics trade show. 3 days, hotel included, standard business trip. Dale decided, one year, that instead of booking 2 separate hotel rooms for me and Marcus, like a normal business would, we'd save money by booking 1 room with 2 double beds. Which, fine, whatever. Mildly annoying, but not the end of the world. Except Dale didn't book it under the company's usual corporate rate. He found some third-party booking site with a rate that was $11 cheaper a night. And it turned out to be a mystery hotel deal, meaning you don't find out which actual hotel you're staying at until after you've paid. We show up to the address on the confirmation, and it's not even a hotel anymore. It's a hotel that closed 8 months prior, and is now, we discover after standing in an empty parking lot for 20 minutes, being converted into senior living apartments. Marcus and I ended up sleeping in his car in a Waffle House parking lot for 4 hours before we found a place with a vacancy. And when I told Dale what happened, his response, and I'm not making this up, was, well, technically you got somewhere to sleep, so the trip wasn't a total loss. Somewhere to sleep, Dale, in a Honda Civic. Marcus still has a bad back from that, allegedly, though he also blames that on a college rugby injury, so the science is a little murky. But the real signature Dale move, the thing that's going to matter a whole lot for the rest of this story, was expenses. If you had to travel for work, drive somewhere for a client meeting, grab lunch with a vendor, whatever, company policy said you'd get reimbursed. In theory. In practice, getting Dale to actually pay you back was like trying to get blood out of an extremely stubborn stone that also happens to sign your paycheck. You'd submit an expense report, totally legit, receipts and everything, and it would just vanish into some black hole in Dale's office. You'd follow up, and he'd go, "Oh yeah, I saw that. It's in the process," which was Dale speak for, "I have not looked at this, and I am hoping you forget." Sometimes it'd take 6 weeks. Sometimes it'd take literally never, and you'd just have to eat the cost because chasing it felt more exhausting than the money was worth. I personally was out probably $400-500 over the years just from stuff that got processed into oblivion. And here's the thing that made it extra insane. Dale would do this weird thing at restaurants where he'd forget his wallet with almost supernatural consistency whenever he took a client or an employee out to lunch. Like, this man forgot his wallet more times than I've forgotten my own name. And every single time, guess who ends up putting it on their card because it's awkward to sit there and argue about a $50 lunch bill in front of a client. Then guess who has to submit that as an expense report and wait 6 to 8 business millennia to get paid back? Me. It was always me. I became, unofficially, Dale's personal lunch bank. I gotta be honest with you. Before I found the golden ticket clause, I tried a bunch of normal, sane, adult ways of dealing with this, and every single one of them failed spectacularly. First, I tried just asking nicely, like a functioning member of society. "Hey Dale, any update on that expense report from last month?" And he'd go, "Oh yeah, totally, remind me Friday." And then Friday would come and go, and somehow it would just evaporate again. Like Dale had some kind of memory wipe machine specifically calibrated to erase reimbursement requests. Then I tried the passive-aggressive sticky note phase, which, in hindsight, was not my finest professional moment. I left one on his desk that just said, "Still waiting on that $85 for March," smiley face, with a smiley face doing a lot of emotional heavy lifting. And Dale's response was to leave a sticky note back on my desk that said, "Noted," with an exclamation point that somehow felt more threatening than reassuring. Nothing happened. The $85 remained exactly as gone as it had been before I wrote the note. Then, and this is the one Marcus still brings up to embarrass me, I tried direct confrontation. One time, in his office, door closed and everything. I sat down and said, real calm, "Dale, I need that reimbursement processed this week. I've got some personal expenses coming up." This was actually right around when Priya and I started wedding planning. And Dale looked at me, dead serious, and said, "Jake, I hear you. I really do. But cash flow's tight right now. We all gotta tighten our belts a little." And then, I kid you not, 20 minutes later, I watched him walk out to the parking lot and get into a brand new golf cart he just bought for getting around the warehouse faster, which cost, conservatively, about $4,000, or roughly 10 times what he owed me at that point. Belt very much not tightened, my guy. Now, around this same time, I'd been dating my girlfriend Priya for about 3 years, and I proposed. Actually, a really sweet, normal proposal. Nothing dramatic, just felt right. And she said yes, obviously, and we started planning the wedding. And weddings, if you've ever planned one, you know, cost an unholy amount of money for what is essentially a really nice party where everyone watches you cry. We were trying to save every dollar we could, doing the whole "let's DIY the centerpieces" thing, cutting corners everywhere reasonable. And every single month, I'd look at my bank account and go, man, if Dale had just paid me back that $400 and change he owes me over the years, we'd basically have our flower budget covered. So one night, I'm venting to Priya about this, about Dale and the pens and the teabags and the wallet thing, and she goes, only half joking, "Why don't you just make him pay you back, like officially, with paperwork, since apparently that's the only language that man respects?" And I laughed it off in the moment, but then, like any unhinged person with wedding-related financial anxiety, I could not stop thinking about it. I gotta paint the wedding budget situation a little more clearly too, because it matters for how satisfying the ending is. Priya and I had this whiteboard in our apartment. Real romantic, I know. With every single line item of the wedding broken out. And every week, we'd have what we started calling budget church, where we'd sit down with wine and cut something else out of the plan. We went from a live band to a DJ. We went from a DJ to, Marcus has a really good Spotify playlist, actually. We cut the open bar down to beer and wine only. Then Priya's dad heard about that and quietly told the venue to just put the full bar back on his card without telling us. God bless that man. We were doing centerpieces out of mason jars and grocery store flowers, which, don't get me wrong, still looked great, but it was very much a we are stretching every dollar operation. So every time Dale did something that cost him basically nothing, reused a tea bag, guilt-tripped somebody out of a second cake slice, unplugged a space heater to save maybe 40 cents of electricity, while simultaneously sitting on hundreds of dollars that belonged to me, it started to feel almost personally insulting, on top of just being annoying. Like, my guy, you're out here rationing hand soap while I'm trying to figure out if we can afford chair covers. So here's where it gets good. About 2 weeks later, I'm doing this mandatory annual compliance training. You know, the ones where you click through slides for 45 minutes just to prove you didn't actually read anything. And buried in there is a section on expense reimbursement policy. And it links out to the actual full employee handbook, which, real talk, I don't think a single human being at that company had read cover to cover since it was written. Including, and this is the important part, Dale himself. So out of pure boredom, I start skimming this thing, and I find this one clause tucked in there like a little Easter egg that says, and I am paraphrasing only slightly, that any employee expense submitted with proper documentation that is not reimbursed within 30 business days is subject to a mandatory processing delay penalty equal to the original amount, meaning the company owes double, plus a monthly accrual on top of that for every additional month it goes unpaid. I read that 3 times. I actually said, "No way," out loud at my desk, and my coworker Marcus looked over like I'd found a $20 bill on the sidewalk. And here's the kicker. This clause wasn't some corporate lawyer's idea. Dale wrote this section himself, like 8 years back, because he genuinely thought it made the company look buttoned up and serious to a client who was auditing our processes for a big contract. Dale, in a fit of trying to look professional in front of somebody who mattered, had accidentally written himself into a trap, and then never once had to actually honor it, because nobody had ever submitted an expense that went unpaid long enough, on record, with receipts, to actually trigger it. Nobody, that is, except every single person Dale had been quietly stiffing on lunch money for years. So I did what any reasonable, level-headed, totally not plotting revenge person would do. I started keeping receipts. Every single one. Every lunch Dale forgot his wallet for, every mileage reimbursement he was sitting on, every hotel expense from that one work trip to Ohio that he still hadn't paid me back for 8 months later. I made a spreadsheet. I want to be clear, this spreadsheet had a name. Priya named it. It was called, and I quote, the Dale Ledger of Doom. And it had color coding. It had a running total. It had a separate tab for penalty accrual projections. I genuinely think it's some of my best work as a professional, and it was entirely dedicated to petty revenge. I did this for about 4 months, just quietly documenting, submitting everything through the proper official channels, proper expense report, attached receipt, dated, time-stamped, the whole 9 yards, and letting each one sit there, unpaid, exactly the way Dale always let them sit. I never chased him on a single one. Not one follow-up email. Not one, "Hey Dale, did you get a chance to look at that?" I just let the clock run, because I knew, deep in my bones, that this man was never going to pay any of it back on his own. And every single day that passed was another day of interest accruing on my side. I want to give you a taste of some actual entries from the Dale Ledger of Doom, because I think about these line items with genuine fondness now. Entry 1. Client lunch, Vasquez account, $187.40. Dale forgot wallet, 3rd time this quarter. Entry 2. Mileage, Cincinnati round trip, submitted twice, acknowledged 0 times. Entry 3, my personal favorite, just says, Ohio Hotel, single room. Dale insisted I share with warehouse manager Gary to save the company money. Gary snores like a wood chipper. Emotional damages not itemized, but noted for the record. Priya used to make me read these out loud to her at dinner like bedtime stories, and we'd just cackle. Marcus, meanwhile, got wind of what I was building. I couldn't keep the spreadsheet totally secret. The guy sits 4 feet from me. And about 2 months in, he started his own version, which he called, in a stroke of branding genius, the Database. His had way more entries than mine, actually, because Marcus had been there 2 years longer and had apparently just been quietly eating the cost of stuff for ages without complaining. We'd compare notes at lunch like a couple of accountants plotting a heist, which, in a sense, is exactly what we were doing. Except every single thing we were doing was 100% within the actual written rules. Meanwhile, life at the office kept being exactly as ridiculous as always. Dale forgot his wallet 3 more separate times during this window, including once at a lunch with a potential new client where the bill came to almost $200, and I paid it without blinking, smiling the whole time, because in my head I was thinking, "Oh, you're just adding to the pile, my guy. Keep going." Marcus started calling me the Dale Whisperer, because I stopped even reacting when Dale did his usual cheapskate stuff. I'd just nod, smile, and mentally add another line to the spreadsheet. Month 1 of the ledger, Dale tried to make the whole office chip in $5 each for a goodbye card and gift for a guy retiring after 19 years. And when the total came up short of what Dale considered an appropriate gift, he didn't add any of his own money. The owner of the company, 19 years of service. He just quietly downgraded the gift from a nice watch to a $40 gift card and kept the card's store-branded envelope for future use. Which, I want to be clear, means he reused an envelope meant for a retirement gift as generic office stationery. Marcus caught him doing it and just mouthed, "The man has no bottom," across the office at me. Month 2, Dale announced, completely straight-faced, in an all-staff email, that the office was switching to a bring-your-own-coffee policy, ending years of provided company coffee, citing rising bean costs. The same week, he bought that golf cart. People started a group coffee fund just so the office didn't collectively descend into caffeine withdrawal murder. And Dale, somehow, still occasionally forgot his mug and drank out of the community fund coffee without ever once chipping in. Month 3, my personal favorite entry of the whole saga, Dale tried to expense his own lunch to the company, submitted it through the normal process like any employee would, and our bookkeeper at the time, not Sandra, a different woman named Pat, who has since retired to what I hope is a beach somewhere far away from Dale Prescott, flagged it and asked him, politely, why the owner of the company was expensing a personal lunch to company funds. Dale's answer, and this is real, was, "It was technically a working lunch. I was thinking about work the whole time." To which Pat reportedly just stared at him for a solid 10 seconds before approving it anyway, because arguing with Dale about $11 clearly was not worth her remaining sanity that week. Month 4 is when the Ohio hotel invoice finally crossed the 30-day line, and that's when things actually kicked off for real. Then, right around month 4, we hit the 30 business day mark on the very first expense report I'd submitted after finding that clause, the Ohio hotel trip, which by that point had ballooned, per the handbook's own math, into owing me double the original amount plus 2 months of accrual on top. And I did the responsible, professional thing. I submitted a formal written request to HR, sicking Dale, obviously. Gotta keep him in the loop out of the goodness of my heart. Respectfully requesting reimbursement per section, whatever it was, of the official company handbook, with a full itemized breakdown of the penalty calculation attached. I heard, through the office grapevine, that Dale's reaction to receiving this email was to walk into the HR office, hold up a printout, and go, and I'm quoting Marcus, who overheard this, "What is this? Some kind of joke? We don't actually do this." To which our HR person, a very by-the-book woman named Sandra, who takes zero nonsense from anybody, apparently just slid the actual employee handbook across the desk, the one Dale himself signed off on years ago, and pointed at the exact clause, in writing, with his own signature on the policy approval page. The way Marcus described it to me, Dale went so quiet you could practically hear the gears grinding in his head, doing the math on how many other employees might also have unpaid expenses sitting around collecting the exact same penalty. Because remember, I wasn't the only one Dale had been stiffing for years. I was just the only one petty enough to actually read the fine print and act on it. Marcus gave me the play-by-play of this meeting like he was narrating a boxing match, and I need to share the highlights because apparently it went on for a solid 20 minutes with the door barely muffling any of it. Dale, first move, tried the "this must be a misunderstanding" angle, going, surely this policy was never meant to apply to routine stuff. This was for like major contractor disputes or something. To which Sandra apparently just read the clause out loud, word for word, no exceptions listed, no fine print carving out routine stuff, and let the silence sit there for a solid 5 seconds. Dale's second move, and this is the one Marcus says he'll never forget, was trying to pull the "but I'm the owner" card, saying something like, "I don't think you understand. I can just decide not to do this." And Sandra, apparently without even looking up from her paperwork, said, "You can decide that, Dale, and then I'll have to report a knowing, documented violation of the company's own written wage and reimbursement policy to our employment council. And Jake's got 4 months of dated, itemized, receipt-backed submissions showing a pattern. Your call." Dale's third move was silence, followed by him asking if there was any way to just handle this quietly, off the books. Which, Dale, my man, the entire reason we're in this mess is because you tried to handle everything quietly and off the books for 8 straight years. Sandra, bless her by-the-book heart, apparently told Dale straight up that legally, since he personally authored and signed off on this policy, the company had zero wiggle room to just ignore it now that someone had formally invoked it in writing. Because if word got out that they selectively enforced their own handbook, that opens up a much bigger liability can of worms than just paying me my $400 times 2 plus interest. Dale, allegedly, said something like, "Well, how much are we talking?" And when Sandra told him the running total across every single unpaid expense I'd submitted over those 4 months, original amounts, doubled, plus accrued penalties, his exact words verbatim, according to Marcus, were, and I quote, "That's insane. That's literally insane." Sir, with respect, you wrote the policy. I just read it. So here's how it actually played out. HR, to protect the company from a much bigger mess if this ever got out to other employees or, God forbid, a lawyer, forced Dale to pay out the full amount all at once. No more delays, no more "it's in the process." I got a check, and I want to be very clear, this is not an exaggeration. I have screenshots I still show people at parties, for $1,140. From a company that owed me, in the original, non-doubled, non-penalized version of reality, somewhere around $400 total. Dale's own cheapness policy, written to make himself look tough, ended up costing him nearly 3 times what he actually owed, purely because he was too stubborn to just pay people back on time in the first place. And the best part, the actual best part, is that I did not have to break a single rule to make this happen. I did not lie. I did not fudge a receipt. I did not even raise my voice one time in this entire saga. I simply followed, to the absolute letter, a policy that Dale Prescott personally wrote, personally signed, and personally never expected a single soul to ever actually use against him. That check basically paid for our wedding florist and about half our catering deposit. I told Priya the flowers at our wedding were sponsored by Dale, which she thought was hilarious and also slightly unhinged, which, fair, I probably am a little unhinged about this. I'll own that. Now here's the part that gets even better, which is what that "did you hear what happened to Dale" text from Marcus was actually about, almost a year later. Turns out, after my little payout became office legend, because obviously I did not keep my mouth shut about it, I told literally everyone, quietly, one coworker at a time, like some kind of petty revenge folk hero passing down an oral tradition. a bunch of other employees went back through their own old expense reports. Because if it worked for me, why wouldn't it work for them? Within about 6 months, apparently, no less than 9 separate employees filed the exact same claim, citing the exact same clause for expenses going back years in some cases. Marcus told me the running total HR eventually had to pay out across everybody ended up being something like $18,000, all because of a policy Dale wrote himself to look responsible in front of one client one time 8 years ago, and then promptly ignored for the rest of his natural life. Marcus, obviously, filed his own database claim about a month after mine went through, and walked away with almost $1,600, which he immediately spent on a truly unnecessary amount of concert tickets. No regrets. Sandra from HR apparently told him, off the record, that his was, quote, the most well-documented claim she'd ever seen in her career, which, coming from Marcus, a guy who once lost his own car in a parking garage for 4 hours, felt like a genuine glow-up. Our warehouse manager, Gary, yes, snoring Ohio Hotel Gary, filed a claim going back almost 3 years for a company truck he'd been putting gas in out of his own pocket because Dale kept forgetting to refill the company gas card. And Gary's payout ended up being the single biggest one, north of $4 grand, because the man had receipts going back to a presidential administration ago, neatly organized in an actual physical binder, which honestly makes my little spreadsheet look like amateur hour. Even Sandra from HR herself, allegedly, quietly found a couple of her own unreimbursed training conference expenses from years back, and, in what I consider a beautiful, poetic final twist, filed her own claim against the very company she was helping enforce the policy for. Dale, allegedly, tried to quietly change the handbook after my payout to remove that clause entirely. Except, and this is the part that really sends me, company policy, which Dale also wrote, requires any handbook changes to go through a 30-day employee review and comment period before taking effect, which meant everyone had a full month's advance notice that the loophole was closing, which was basically a starting gun for every single person with an old unpaid expense report to go dig through their email and file their claim before the window shut. Dale accidentally gave everyone a heads up to come collect. The man could not stop writing his own downfall into policy documents if he tried. Last I heard from Marcus, Dale's actually had to hire an actual outside accountant on a real retainer just to audit the company's expense process going forward, because apparently the owner can no longer be trusted to just wing it based on vibes and how much he feels like paying people that particular week. Which, honestly, might be the healthiest thing that's ever happened to that business, even if it took nearly $20,000 in accidental penalty payouts to get there. Oh, and the golf cart. I have to tell you about the golf cart, because Marcus saved this detail for last in his text like the true storyteller he is. Apparently, in the middle of all this financial chaos, Dale had been paying for that $4,000 golf cart on some kind of in-house financing thing through the dealership. And once the company had to pay out that 18 grand in back-owed reimbursements, cash flow actually did get tight. For real this time, no exaggeration needed. And the golf cart, the same one he drove past me in 20 minutes after telling me to tighten my belt, got repossessed right from the warehouse parking lot, in front of everybody. Marcus sent me a video. I have watched that video probably 30 times, and I do not feel even a little bit bad about it. Priya and I got married that spring. Small ceremony, big open bar. And at the reception, my best man, who is also, shocker, Marcus, stood up and gave a toast that included the line, to Jake, the only man I know who got a company to fund his honeymoon through the power of reading the terms and conditions. And the entire room of wedding guests who'd heard some version of this story by that point just absolutely lost it. Marcus wasn't done either. He went on for another solid 2 minutes about how our florist arrangement was ethically sourced from Dale Prescott's own poor life choices, and how the open bar we were currently all enjoying was brought to you in part by a man who once fought a vending machine and lost. Priya's grandmother, 81 years old, deeply confused about who Dale even was, leaned over to me at one point and asked, dead serious, "Is Dale here? Should we have invited Dale?" And I had to explain, no, Grandma, Dale is not invited. Dale does not know he's basically a wedding sponsor. And honestly, that's for the best for everyone involved, mostly Dale. We did, briefly, seriously consider sending Dale a wedding invitation just for the bit, but Priya vetoed it on the grounds that we don't need that kind of chaotic energy at our actual wedding. Which, fair, valid, she was right, as she usually is about these things. I do want to say, I don't actually think Dale's a monster or anything at the end of the day. I think he's just a genuinely cheap guy who never expected anybody to actually hold him to his own rules, and who learned the very expensive way that if you're gonna write a policy to look tough for a client, you'd better be ready to actually live by it when your own employees start reading the fine print. That's really the whole moral here, if there is one. Read the handbook. Always read the handbook. You never know what's hiding in Section 14, subsection C. All right, that's the story. If you've ever had a cheapskate boss, a landlord who forgot a deposit, anybody who wrote rules they never expected to get used against them, I want to hear about it down in the comments. Drop your story. I read every single one. If this one made you laugh even a little, do me a solid and smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel a ton. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. New one every week. Some serious, some funny like this one. Always real. Take it easy, and I will catch you in the next one.